I don't have as many dark clothes as I used to, and I don't have any horror posters I could use for this video. What could I do? That'll do it. The 1981 Evil Dead movie is a film that takes place entirely in one location, most likely owned by someone's parents, focuses on a demon possessing a group of friends, there's a crap ton of face paint, and they even use a skateboard as a camera prop. That's a student film! Evil Dead Rise is the 5th entrant in the Evil Dead film series, and it was really good. It's a great horror with good characters, and it's a fabulous example of how you can modernise a genre, the latter of which, by the way, we will be touching on in a bit. The film focuses on a working class family in Los Angeles who are going through rough financial and family struggles. Whilst on a pizza trip, an earthquake occurs and it accidentally opens up a hole in the ground that leads to one of the kids finding the original Book of the Dead, along with recordings discussing its disturbing and horrifying details. He gives it a listen and accidentally releases an evil demon, aka a Deadite, causing mayhem and fear for the family for the next few hours. Because there's always that one teenager in every other horror film that just has to take the item that may as well have the words, "Do not steal, this book will unleash Lovecraftian nightmares upon the world" on it. This film is a continuation of the original 1980 series, but there are also other things in there that inspired the writers. For example, there are references to films such as The Shining or Wreck. The latter of which I'm guessing was mainly added in because it's also a zombie demon horror movie that takes place entirely within one building. Speaking of which, you really should watch Wreck. I cannot recommend that film enough. It came out in 2007, you know, the time when found footage movies actually had the ability to be good, before Paranormal Activity just had to ruin it by throwing in jump scares every 5 minutes. The horror and creepiness in this movie was fantastic. The fact that it takes place almost entirely within one flat and occasionally the corridor makes the atmosphere a lot more claustrophobic. By keeping the characters in a smaller environment, you're trapping the audience in there with them. It's why I have a soft spot for one location films. You feel like you're in the room with everyone there. There's also another iconic bit from the original films that they carried on into this one, wherein there's a slow zoom in on someone, but their back is facing the audience and you can hear something in front of them. And then they turn around, their face is just horribly mangled and up. That happens again here, and it proves again that the people who made this film put a lot of effort into practical effects and makeup. And they also bring back the creeping following shots. You know, the ones that look like someone's just legging it towards another person with a camera, and it's getting closer and closer to their face. Fun fact, by the way, the original one of those in the 1981 Evil Dead film was filmed by putting a camera on a skateboard and pulling that skateboard along with string. Proper film student stuff. I think that's why I love the original Evil Dead so much, because as a former film student, watching that in university made me feel like I could also make really good movies like that. There is also a lot of gore, which isn't surprising because it's Evil Dead, but it's not overly reliant on it. The blood is there, but it's not like the Saw franchise where the flying guts and torture was the only thing keeping it going after the 3rd installment. By the way, if any of you are interested, I have a big essay relating to that, the link to which will be in the description below. I sure do love a shameless plug-in. The writers really did want to scare you, but there were a couple moments where I did have to look away because I felt like the gore was becoming a bit too much. This was a really good horror and there were some good disturbing scenes, but honestly, no matter how many horror films I watched this year, no movie will get a similar reaction to me as when I was watching The Whale and I saw that scene. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. The characters as well are really interesting. You have a family where everyone is either down on their luck financially or are finding ways to cope with or distract themselves from their problems, and they're forced to work together once the Deadite comes out. The relationship between the siblings is established pretty early on, and you already know what their dynamic is. It's the same situation with the mum and her sister. You already know that they have similar interests in terms of music, tattoos, and culture. You also see how they react once the demon starts attacking them. It adds more to the characters and makes them a lot more interesting. By throwing them in a drastically different situation to the one they were in at the beginning, you're able to see a new side to them. Especially with how terrifying the mother looks throughout the film. The kids are staring into the face of the woman who loved and raised them and are unable to see her anymore because of what the demon has done to her. It has turned her into an unholy monster that can never be brought back. Also, I know this isn't exactly a complaint, but I was half expecting Bruce Campbell to make a cameo at some point. I just imagine if he knocks on the door and then he just gets slaughtered by the Deadite. Not even him playing Ash, just Bruce Campbell. That would have been very funny to see, but honestly I can understand why they wouldn't include that. Evil Dead Rise is also a really good example of how you can modernize a genre. Like, the technology of 2023 is being used here, but at the same time the film is also paying homage to its origins. For example, one of the main characters is a DJ, and along with the Book of the Dead, he also steals a bunch of old vinyl recordings and he uses turntables to decipher what the people on those recordings are saying. The film even utilises smartphones and even ties into more social issues like May Day protests. The makeup and costumes were also a really good way to show that this is an ever-changing genre and more types of people are getting into these films. It's showing that different groups of people have different fears and that there are a myriad of different ways in which you can portray those anxieties on screen. Horror is ever changing and I haven't seen a genre grow and evolve like this before. I think it's largely to do with the fact that with a few exceptions like Pearl or the Conjuring series, these films tend to take place in the modern day of which they were released. Horror has historically been used as an allegory for societal fears at the time, be it with aliens representing xenophobia and racism, demons representing otherness and queer identity, or zombies representing power that some people have over others and the financial decay of society, leading people to have to scrape by in order to live. Evil Dead Rise is a great new entrant in this series, and apparently there are going to be more installments coming in the next few years, which, if Lee Cronin and Sam Raimi are coming back, I am so in! I read a review on Rotten Tomatoes that said that even though this film isn't an instant classic, it's exactly what this series needs in order to stay alive, and you know what? I wholeheartedly agree. Evil Dead will always hold a very special place in my heart, and I'm very, very happy that I got to see this in the cinema.